He emigrated to the United States of America in 1974, in a way that felt straight out of a Hollywood action movie. After performing on tour with the Kirov Ballet in Toronto, Mikhail Baryshnikov suddenly broke away from the crowd of fans, rushed toward a waiting car, and disappeared. The car sped off, and Baryshnikov became a defector. The press wrote that the reason for his sudden escape was a secret love affair. In reality, it was even more complicated, a love triangle. In Leningrad, he had left behind a girl, and across the ocean waited freedom. He chose the latter. Today, Mikhail Baryshnikov is often criticized for how brilliantly he managed to transform himself into an American. He became a soloist of the American Ballet Theater, and later its director. Everything about his life resembled that of Western stars, except for one thing. Unlike them, his fame was not followed by a trail of scandals, romantic affairs, or broken hearts, the kind of stories that are usually considered essential to stardom. Not only does he consider America his homeland, but he also approaches life in a distinctly foreign way. He learned to earn money not through art, but through business. He dances only for pleasure, and for income he owns restaurants, houses, and hotels, devoting much of his time to business negotiations. Almost nothing is known about his private life or romantic escapades. Most celebrities take great pleasure in announcing their real and imagined affairs to the world, rightly believing that it enhances their public image. Baryshnikov, however, appears as a romantic hero only on stage in the classical ballets he performs. He earned a reputation as a man in a shell, a Russian oddball. To many, this seemed an irresistible challenge, a fortress they longed to conquer. Especially since, at social gatherings, the small, smiling, lively man with the curious name Misha did not seem like a monster at all. But that was not the case. The mysterious Russian soul, the Americans decided, and backed off. But not everyone did. Rumors began to spread more and more persistently about his passionate affairs. Russian friends visiting from home could hardly believe the names whispered in backstage gossip. Liza Minnelli, Jessica Lange, Sharon Stone, Isabella Rossellini. Whenever Baryshnikov was asked, directly or indirectly, about any of his supposed victims, he always replied with the same diplomatic composure. "She is a wonderful woman. We respect each other deeply." And not a single word more. Americans attributed such unshakable restraint to his Soviet past. In that Soviet prison, they whispered in the theater, Baryshnikov learned to stay silent and never show his feelings. In 1977, the film The Turning Point, directed by Herbert Ross, was released. In it, Baryshnikov decided to try himself as a film actor and played a character named Yuri Kopeikin, a charming, restless man whose greatest passion was women. The role turned out to be an extraordinary success. Baryshnikov was so convincing as a ladies' man that audiences could not help but recognize the similarity to real life. No one wanted to believe in his quiet, modest behavior anymore. And then, the whole world learned about his romance with one of Hollywood's brightest stars, Jessica Lange. Gossip columnists celebrated triumphantly, so he is just like everyone else after all. Until then, his lofty friendship with the poet Joseph Brodsky had made many believe that these Russians were somehow built differently from everyone else. The press pounced on Baryshnikov and Lange's affair like a hungry dog on a bone. They wrote that Baryshnikov behaved like a cruel eccentric, that he beat Jessica, forced her to cook strange Russian dishes, and made her scrub the floors on her knees, that she even filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of coercing her into love. At any hour, even in the middle of the night, one New York paper reported, Their house could suddenly be invaded by Russian friends without warning, and poor Jessica was forced to host them, feed them, and listen until dawn to their excited shouts in a foreign language. And all of this happened during the peak of Jessica's acting career. She starred in King Kong, All That Jazz, and The Postman Always Rings Twice, all in a row. Baryshnikov responded to journalists' provocative questions with complete silence, yet it was impossible not to notice that his far from perfect English had suddenly become looser, more playful, and that he had even begun to enjoy swearing. Then, unexpectedly, it became known that during just 1 year of living with Baryshnikov, Jessica Lange broke every record for visits to her psychoanalyst. The average American goes about 14 times a year. Jessica went at least 50 times. Considering that 1 hour with the specialist cost around $250, one could only imagine how expensive that exotic romance turned out to be. At one point, Jessica confided to her therapist that her lover had lost his mother when he was only 11 years old. She had taken her own life. Baryshnikov has a mother complex, a fear of women. The press gleefully echoed the analyst's diagnosis and added their own. Baryshnikov was short, and throughout his youth he had been terrified that he would never become a soloist unless he grew those missing 2 centimeters. He has a Napoleon complex. And if the whole world already lay at the feet of Baryshnikov the dancer, then surely deep down he must also want all women at his feet. Jessica indeed began to notice that Mikhail was spending more and more time at rehearsals. In 1979, he received an unusual offer to take part in a Broadway musical titled Baryshnikov on Broadway. Out of gratitude to the country that took me in, I simply could not refuse to contribute to its national art form, Baryshnikov said. But a musical meant not only dancing, but also singing and acting, something entirely different. And Liza Minnelli, on her own initiative, decided to become his mentor. Liza did not even try to hide that she had always liked the mysterious and restrained Russian dancer. She spent up to 8 hours a day teaching him how to sing, introducing him to new rhythms and pronunciation, and even daring to criticize his dance moves. During those lessons, Baryshnikov seemed like a completely different person. His usual sternness disappeared as if by magic. Everyone around him could see it clearly. He was hopelessly in love. As for Minnelli, she had recently divorced her second husband, television producer Jack Haley Jr., and she was craving a new passion. In her sparkling eyes, in her boundless sincerity, and in her readiness for adventure, Baryshnikov saw something familiar, something that reminded him of home. Unlike the well-mannered Jessica, with her carefully scheduled weekend intimacy, like any hard-working American, Liza was always available and always full of enthusiasm. Jessica was consumed by jealousy, while Baryshnikov floated in the clouds. He would spend hours reading Brodsky's poetry to his new companion. She would listen wide-eyed and fascinated. He played her recordings of his Russian friends, Okudjava and Vysotsky, and she would open her eyes even wider, completely captivated. Unlike Jessica, Liza adored those late-night kitchen gatherings with the Russians. There was only one thing that bothered her. Misha, the man who was so delightful and prestigious to appear with in public, never actually took her anywhere, never spoke about her to reporters, never showed her off. One day, unable to restrain herself, Minnelli asked her friend Marina Vladi, the wife of Vladimir Vysotsky, "Tell me, does your man also just talk to you and read poetry all the time?" Baryshnikov began to notice that the fire in Liza's eyes was fading. One day, as they were walking through rainy New York, Liza suddenly said thoughtfully, that she was considering marrying a well-known theatrical manager and sculptor named Mark Garrow. Baryshnikov was stunned by her bluntness. "I have known for a long time that you are a dreamer," Liza said with sudden irritation. "But I want a real life. With you, there are only dreams and conversations. All your adventures are long over. You have already lived them out in your ballet fairy tales." Cruel words, but true. His romantic passion had been exhausted on stage, in Giselle, The Nutcracker, Swan Lake. In real life, he failed to notice that his girlfriend had already begun to enjoy the attention of the Broadway master, Mark Garrow. In April 1980, the musical Baryshnikov on Broadway premiered to triumphant success, featuring both the Russian dancer and Liza Minnelli together. But by then, the lovers had already gone their separate ways. The wisest of them all turned out to be Jessica Lange. In 1981, she gave birth to a daughter, Alexandra, Baryshnikov's child, and for a couple more years, that brought him back to her. But no matter how hard they tried for their daughter's sake, their relationship, which lasted about 6 years, eventually fell apart. After his separation from Lange, Baryshnikov broke his usual silence and made a rare, historic confession. "I cannot live with American women. No matter how many times I tried to convince myself that it was possible, it is not. I cannot understand them, and they cannot understand me." It was his only comment on the end of their relationship. Several years passed. Baryshnikov became the director and artistic leader of his own contemporary dance company, the Koch White Oak Project. During an interview for a fashionable lifestyle magazine, the king of dance did not say a single word about his second civil marriage to ballerina Lisa Reinhardt. Instead, he happily shared countless stories about his dogs. Deeply offended, Lisa demanded an explanation. Then Baryshnikov told her a very old story. When he was a boy, a Latvian woman named Erika Vitinš, who had taken the place of his mother, instilled in him a fear of the evil eye, especially in matters of love. Erika used to say that if too many people knew about your happiness, whether it was love or money, envy and malice would send out bad vibrations, and everything would be ruined. She had plenty of vivid examples, and Mikhail never forgot them. Lisa knew he was genuinely superstitious. He would never start any new venture during a waning moon. It was a bad omen. The same applied to women. Still, Lisa remained entirely indifferent to his secret affairs, if there were any. Being German by origin, she played by his rules. As a result, they have been together for more than 10 years, and they have 3 children. She never asks him about his work, never turns on the television when there is a program or performance featuring her husband, never attends social events with him, and never orders designer dresses from fashionable couturiers. And if we are to believe Jessica Lange's psychoanalyst in Lisa, the artist finally found what he had been searching for all along, a substitute for his mother. To this day, Americans are still puzzled by this couple, just as they were once fascinated and bewildered by the cold, enigmatic Baryshnikov. "The mysterious Russian soul," they sigh, shrugging their shoulders.